Welcome to the PIDE webinar, Pakistan Institute of Development Economics. हम कोशिश करते हैं पाकिस्तान की इकोनॉमी के जितने पहलू हैं उनको केयरफुली स्टडी करें, उनको केयरफुली उन पे समझने की कोशिश करें एंड उस पे रिसर्च का काम जारी रखें और कोशिश करें पॉलिसी मेकर्स को इन्फॉर्म करें. Unfortunately, there is no audience for what we have to say, but that's besides the point, because we are a nation that loves to run blind. We don't really think about things, but that's besides the point. We will continue to do our bit and to try and educate the people of Pakistan. Now, road transportation, the logistics industry is hugely understudied. इसके ऊपर तो हमने कोई स्टडी कंप्लीट ही नहीं कभी की, तो और कोई हुई भी नहीं स्टडी. तो ये बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट इंडस्ट्री जिसको हमें सोचना चाहिए, उसको देखें. तो ये इसलिए हमने रोड ट्रांसपोर्टेशन इंडस्ट्री पे आज पहले भी एक कराया था लॉजिस्टिक्स पे सेमिनार, तो आज इस पे हम कर रहे हैं. And I'm very happy to say we've got two very important people who will talk about this. Chishty, who is who is a general partner in SparkLabs Venture Capital. इन्होंने Daewoo खरीद लिया SparkLabs ने. Faisal Siddiqui जो CEO Daewoo है, तो इनसे करना चाहते हैं कि ये क्या एक तो पहले वेरी ब्रीफली समीर साहब या फैसल साहब आप जरा हमें डिस्क्राइब कर दें Daewoo की हिस्ट्री थोड़ी सी, एंड व्हाट रोल Daewoo हैज प्लेड in terms of defining road transportation in Pakistan. Quickly इसको जरा थोड़ा सा बता दें, then we'll go deeper into the subject.
Yes, our Daewoo Express started off in the spring of 1998, and in some ways the bus service was sort of an accidental start. Daewoo Corporation had built the Lahore to Islamabad motorway, and at the start the usage of the motorway was fairly limited. I think the people of Pakistan weren't quite used to paying tolls at that time, and therefore the government requested Daewoo Corporation to introduce a bus service that would popularize the use of the motorway. And so Daewoo Express came into existence. It started with 20 buses. And I think the Koreans that started weren't quite familiar with the bus culture in Pakistan. So in some ways they weren't hampered by some legacy issues. So they simply started with the way buses are operated in the rest of the world, in the developed world, in Korea, timely, reliable, efficient service, running clean, clean buses and offering that service to the public and charging appropriately for it, just to make sure that the enterprise is profitable. So the idea sounds pretty basic, but it ended up being quite revolutionary in that it was just the idea that you could run a sort of properly priced, but timely and efficient and reliable and high quality bus service in Pakistan. Subsequent to that, spring of '98, we're now 25 years on in our journey. The buses that started, the 20 buses that started our business have now expanded to nearly 400 buses on the intercity bus side. The company has expanded in the urban transport sector, where it now operates buses in Lahore, Peshawar, Karachi, and Multan, city bus services, and also in the cargo courier space. We have begun to make our mark. We have several services, the traditional terminal-to-terminal cargo movement business, and now we've expanded into courier as well. So these are our three business lines, and mashallah say, just sticking to the original idea of providing reliable and efficient service, we've managed to achieve success in all three of these business lines and hope to expand further.
But you are not into logistics in general. आप ये नहीं goods transport का नहीं काम ज़्यादा करते?
नहीं, हमारी जो cargo business है, that is in goods transport. We don't do sort of the traditional full truckload business. So we do sort of less than container load, sort of the terminology that's used is sort of less than container load, trucking is something that we do provide. We provide movement through our buses and we provide movement through some trucks, but not sort of the large scale full truckload.
So Samir sir, can you tell us what sparked your interest? Why did you buy Daewoo out?
So just to be, I mean, not to get into all the details of the transaction, but Daewoo is owned by a set of investors, which are private equity investors. SparkLabs is a technology venture capital firm that started in Korea. So in a way, it has similar roots to Daewoo. It's a Seoul-based venture capital firm that has invested in about 350 technology companies around the world. SparkLabs has only made 4 investments in Pakistan, but as SparkLabs looks forward to the next decade, we think the big opportunity is to help successful incumbent businesses, forward-thinking incumbent businesses, use technologies to grow. So for example, use digital technologies for payments, use digital technologies and machine learning and data to optimize, for example, bus routes and bus pricing. Capabilities that, for example, Daewoo Express is already using. Deploy renewable energy technologies to create abundant, cheap power for Karachi and Lahore. And finally, just one more example is get rid of physical cash in the system. So more people use digital payments, because digital payments, taking cash out is a more efficient way of running an economy, and it serves as an exponential accelerator to business. The velocity of money increases in the economy, and you can just do more. So that is SparkLabs' interest. So we want to invest in. We are investing in these technology companies and partnering with companies like Daewoo who can take advantage of these technologies on an existing installed base.
But tell me now, in terms of Daewoo, ये जो company है, now it's got a lot of competition. It used to be more or less a monopoly in '98 when Daewoo buses were running quite rapidly. At this time now, when I travel on the motorway, I see a number of competitors. आपके बहुत सारे competitors आ गए. So how do you see this industry growing? It is an industry that has a future in Pakistan. We've developed a large number of roads, and obviously road transportation, because railway is kind of dead, and not everywhere planes can go. So road transport is quite important. How do you see this evolving over the future, and what are the constraints that you see in terms of making your company, the Daewoo company, for example? अभी अगर इसको roughly देखा जाए तो इसकी क्या valuation होगी? I know probably you can't give us privy information, but roughly speaking, क्या इसका turnover या कोई ऐसा figure दें जिससे हम हिसाब लगा सकें कि ये company की क्या अहमियत है economy में?
I think just initially in terms of just अगर discussion की जाए on the on the competition that's entered the market. I mean, we find it sort of a validation of our business model that so many competitors have come into this space. This is a business that is relatively low, that's sort of a relatively low barriers to entry. The sort of unique, one of the unique points of Daewoo Express is that we operate our own terminals. And in some ways, we feel that the real advantage here is the terminals, not necessarily the buses. I mean, obviously, you need to have good quality buses and you need to provide a good service. But the ability to attract people to a specific terminal and to have that retain in the traveler's mind that is the place to go to get a bus is of paramount importance. So we feel that although there will be people that continue to fly buses and invest in buses and operate different with our competitors, we feel that we hold a sort of a unique place as far as the intercity bus market is concerned. I would say about 80%, maybe between 70 to 80% of the intercity bus market comprises of non-AC buses. It's sort of the the wagon market, if you will, or sort of the slightly less comfortable buses, if you will. But of the other 30% of the high quality AC bus market, I think we're probably about maybe 30 to 40% of the overall market. So yes, so we've gone from 100% to 30 to 40%, which is fine. It's not something that necessarily bothers us. We just need to make sure that our quality remains good, and we continue to enhance our services and make sure that the customer gets what they've paid for.
Faisal, if you don't mind me adding, Nadeem sir, if you don't mind me adding just a macro view, I like the way you started. I really like the way you started off. I think if you look at planes, trains, automobiles, buses, etc. Right? If you look at that macro view, which is really helpful, you can't help but think for a 230 million population, rapidly growing population, although sadly income is not growing at the same rate, Pakistan needs a lot more and more varied transport options. Like today, Pakistan has plane service, but as you yourself put it, it's highly limited, it's super expensive. Even between KI, even between Karachi, Lahore, Islamabad, we don't have frequent reliable plane service. Then you've got rail. The less spoken about rail, the better, right? So forget about high-speed rail. We just don't have an effective functioning rail service. Then if you look at buses, we do have buses, intercity bus service, Daewoo Express being a prime example. Obviously, it's a competitive business, but the real business in intercity bus is the mass market business, which is not luxury, not air conditioned. Then you go to intracity, and intracity is an even worse shape. If you look at a city like Karachi, where I live, Lahore is in a better state in that there are metro buses, etc. Some operated by companies like Daewoo, some operated by governments. But Karachi does not have enough volume, enough quality of buses, and there are no other there's no like metro line, etc. So Pakistan just across the board needs just more types of transport options and more transport options. And as a tech investor, we're arguing for just leapfrogging and going to electric vehicle buses, forget about cars, just go to electric vehicle 2- and 3-wheeler bikes. Because waiting for the rail, one thing, policy better than I do, but it just seems like waiting for railways to transform itself is going to be a long wait. But there are all these options the private sector can support. For example, if you look at the 2- and 3-wheeler government policy, it's fantastic. And I hope it stays, and I hope the government doesn't make short-term trades for cash earnings. So the government policy on 3-wheelers and 2-wheelers for electric is great, and I hope it's prolonged. The same policies are put in for EV buses and so on. That's what Pakistan really needs. But waiting for people to buy their own cars is going to be a disaster.
But Samir sir, मुझे ये बताइए कि where is the growth potential here? SparkLabs, you're talking about tech innovation, etc., etc. I mean, venture capital, you guys are very hungry, and you guys require a very high growth rate. I've heard in the figures in the range of 30 to 40% annually. Does Daewoo or road transportation offer that kind of a return to investors? Is it a high yield investment or not? Or is it a high growth, I should say, not high yield? It's a high growth investment. And how do you see yourself growing?
Yeah, companies such as Daewoo, for example, has multiple parts of the business. Faisal alluded to one, which is effectively the platform business. If you forget Daewoo for a second, if you look at the electric vehicle 2- and 3-wheeler business, see, there's one part of the business which is the manufacturing of 2- and 3-wheelers, right? That's a manufacturing business. It needs scale, innovation, capital investment. It's a nice business, but in that the margins will decline over time because you'll have more competition. You'll have scale technology entrants like China, etc. So the cost pressure will be on. So it'll be a race to produce cheaper and cheaper, manufacture cheaper and cheaper electric 2- and 3-wheelers. Then there's the charging station business, let's say electric charging stations with Mitsubishi, AB, Asia, Bavaria, etc., who are competing in the charging station business, which really there's some sustainable competitive advantage in technology. Then there are the fleet operators, people like Daewoo, people like Fruit Panda, Daraz, who have, who will have thousands of these 2- and 3-wheelers out in the street who operate them. And then there's, let's say, the platform business on which all these 3-wheelers and 2-wheelers sit. We think value migrates to the 2 and 3 to the platform business. So we think it's much more value creating to own the platform than it is to own the operator. So Faisal alluded to this. Once again, I'm not giving away secrets, and I'm not asking Faisal to give away secrets, but at Daewoo, there's a lot of value in being the platform on which operators sit. So if you separate the platform from the operator, we think the platform is a venture business where you can deliver 10x returns. We think manufacturing is a tough road. We think ultimately the operator is also a tough business. So we'll invest in platform businesses every day of the week and twice on Sunday, as the expression goes. But G, to answer your question simply, we think platform businesses do deliver venture-like returns, especially in a market like Pakistan, where platform enables you to serve a lot more people. So platform would be a connected platform for 2- and 3-wheelers, where you have let's say, a battery swapping network at different, Daewoo bus stops, Shell gas stations, etc., where 2- and 3-wheeler can pull up, swap, put their used put their empty drained battery and take a charged battery, put it in their 2-wheeler bike, where they plugged in their smartphone. So suddenly your 2- and 3-wheeler is charged up, your smartphone's connected, and you're basically part of an ecosystem. So you're part of a connected platform on which you can use payments, you can use data, you can use targeted services, and that platform that is a lot more valuable than the margin you make on the 2- and 3-wheeler. Much more valuable than operating the 2- and 3-wheeler. So the sum of its parts is interesting, is valuable, but the network has more value than each individual component. I apologize if I rambled a bit, but I
see the point you're making, but in order to build this platform and network, क्या ये जो हमारी country की tariff policy है, protection policy है, subsidy policy है, etc., will that help you or will that delay your plans?
I think Faisal and I both answer it. Faisal, do you want to go?
And I would like to hear your views also on what should be done to make this a vibrant industry. I'll tell you एक और चीज जो मुझे फैसल साहब, समीर साहब, जो मुझे बहुत बात तंग करती है, which I keep asking a lot of people. अभी recently we had Hussain Dawood Saab and Samad Dawood Hussain son and Muhammad Ali Tabbar too. I think Pakistan really has no multinational company. Pakistan really has no large company. Pakistan has very small companies. I mean, a person who has a $30-40 million company is considered to be very, very rich. International terms, $30 to $40 million is nothing. I mean, people in jobs seem to get that kind of money. So what is it that hinders you, for example? Oh, let me put it slightly differently. Will I see Daewoo listed on the stock exchange at some point and growing to be $1 billion company, and how or what will help you do it, and how and what will stop you from doing it?
Let me take a macro view, then I'll pass over to Faisal. I think a macro view is certainly the investment thesis for Pakistan is there's talent. There are talented people, there are hardworking people. That's not in doubt. There are a lot of people also. There's a growing economy, growing population. Once again, population is growing faster than income, but that's beyond the control of the people in this room. Population control policies should have been implemented 30 years ago. We're living through the compounding effect of that negative behavior. So it is what it is, right? We can't do anything about it. So before we do anything, giving thought to what are intelligent ways to reduce population growth would be useful. So if you look at Bangladesh, in Iran, for example, or India, controlling the denominator has led to wealth. Controlling the population denominator has led to wealth creation. Then you come to size of companies. Ultimately, your question, G, is about size of company. Suffers a valuation discount, right? So for the same dollar of earnings, you get valued in the capital. Pakistani companies get valued at a low rate. You mentioned two of the most successful entrepreneurs and corporate tycoons in Pakistan, Mohammad Ali Bhai, the Tabba Group, Lucky Group, and then Samad Bhai, Angro Group, right? They are the closest, once again, not to belittle anyone, they are two of the closest companies, close to kind of MNC quality, people who have gone global in a way, regional at least, and could ride the next wave of growth of Pakistani companies becoming regional companies. So if you look at Ambani's, Adani, etc., I would look at the Lucky Group, Angro as role models for what Pakistani companies do. But once again, they are best positioned to tell you what they'll do, how they'll do it. But it is possible. I think the problem is Pakistan suffers from a valuation discount because people discount back the growth in Pakistan because they assume there'll be uncertainty, there'll be currency depreciation, they assume there'll be some political risk down the corner, so they preemptively discount a lot of that back. And therefore linked to all that is like a negative, it's like the opposite of virtuous loops. It's a negative whirlpool or negative loop where Pakistani companies also then suffer from a loss of capital. So a lack of capital. There's not enough investors putting in fresh capital, putting in growth capital. So it's not. I think it's unfair to just blame the entrepreneurs. Okay, you guys aren't ambitious, or you guys don't go international. It's just the environment and then capital linked to that, right? So I think once again, some of the ingredients exist to create the whirlpool, the negative vortex into a positive loop is possible. And Faisal and Daewoo were one of good examples of a company that could and should be a lot bigger than it is today.
I can speak specifically from Daewoo Express's experience. We do intend to go public. We've been contemplating that for several years now. The last couple, however, from a valuation perspective on the Pakistan Stock Exchange has been, we haven't reached a point where we can convince our shareholders that it adds value to raise money at these valuations. Having said that, when you mention whether Daewoo Express can be a billion-dollar company, it is entirely possible, and in fact that does happen to be sort of one of the the goals assigned by board members and shareholders of the company. That at some point, given the breadth of business we wish to do, we should reach there, and there is significant potential. There's certainly potential. The intercity bus business, as far as passenger transport is concerned, it has a certain size. There's still lots of growth opportunities, but moving people is generally 1/10 the size of the market for moving goods. So we intend to expand also very heavily into the goods transport area. There's lots of opportunities within the urban transport space to expand. So I think it's entirely conceivable to get to that valuation level. Having said that, I do want to highlight our experience in terms of why we feel that organized entities have a difficult time growing. There are, in some ways, the government has gone out of its way to penalize people that set up companies that go the traditional route. In many ways, you're essentially signing up to be a tax collector for the government of Pakistan. So all the withholding tax requirements fall on the on a company. It doesn't fall on a sole proprietor or on a partnership. As a corporation, we comply with the tax code as far as income tax is concerned. On the cargo courier side, there is a significant sales tax element to it, which we do charge and pass on. When we distribute salaries to our employees, we are we're going through the salaries withholding tax. When we do work with our suppliers, there are income tax withholding measures and stuff that a company has to do. The reality of the situation in our sector is that none of our competitors, in fact, are organized. None of them are companies. They all hide behind a sole proprietorship or a partnership or some form thereof, and are able to escape the scrutiny that a company like ours has to face. And so it is only our perhaps slightly improved efficiency and scale and thankfully name that is able to allow us to charge slightly higher fares while others also are in the same space. And I think trucking is pretty much the same. You see, maybe you have people like Agility or, perhaps, I guess, the NLC to some extent that run on an organized level, run large fleets that transport full containers across the country. But primarily, you'll see sole proprietors in that area. And again, it comes down to the same thing. It is very hard to compete when the playing field is skewed against you and continues to do so, right? So whenever super taxes are imposed and you go from 29 to 33 or wherever, it's companies like ours that essentially feel the effects. And so, I think the government does need to think about these things if they want to create, large champions of the types that we see. We certainly see across the world, but even in India, with the Ambanis and the Adanis and the rest of these large companies, we really do have to think about, the playing field.
If you don't mind,
Go ahead.
PIDE obviously is a world-class policy institute. So if with your permission, if I could just make one suggestion to the government, not to you, but to the government, that far be it from me to give policy advice. I'm not even giving policy. I'm just saying, if you think about, I'm an investor, as you know personally, I was an investor, fintech investor with SparkLabs in southern China, right? So Shenzhen and Hong Kong. So I've lived through the last 15, 16 years, that southern China, Hong Kong tech story, and for the last 3 years in Pakistan. So there are specific opportunities everywhere in EV, in transport, in fintech. There's also opportunity. The question really is, why is there a valuation discount that you alluded to? Faisal was alluding to a discount in the public markets. I'm referring to a discount in the private markets, right? So my macro recommendation would, I can't make micro recommendations on policy. And macro would be that, for great policy, you need intelligence. And with all due respect, the government can borrow intelligence, can partner for intelligence. For example, PIDE, right? If you say to PIDE, I'm assuming, given my interaction with PIDE, I'm assuming you can say, listen, PIDE, you have 3 months to give us government can say, give us a policy recommendation on how to create, regional leading champions in logistics that can then do a end-to-end logistics, starting from port to ship to multimodal, warehousing, port, play, all that. You can, in maybe 3-4 months, PIDE can probably create a great example, right? You don't need to hire McKinsey, even though, that's my alma mater. You don't need to hire McKinsey. You can just create one, I'm pretty sure, consult the right people, then present it, right? And the government can execute. The challenge is typically in reliability of policy. Right? So one of the great things over the last 15, 16 years, whatever, in southern China and Hong Kong, as an investor, has been reliability of policy, predictability of policy. Because ultimately people like Faisal and I literally have a spreadsheet where we put in inputs and projections, and then we rely on them to make decisions. We rely on the future projections for making decisions today, right? And then so if there's a capriciousness or a volatility in this decision making, it's not reliable. So people preemptively will discount those valuations, right, of future earnings. So my only advice would be, the government can partner, borrow, learn from other people's intelligent ideas and incorporate them, but reliably implementing them is the thing I think we all need to work on in Pakistan government.
No, I think it's a very fair point, a very good point, and we keep making that. I hope the government learns someday. But let's come back to this thing, Kadi. Agar ke, for example, ये road transport, हमने roads तो बड़े अच्छे बना दिए. We've got very good roads. I think, quite frankly, our roads are even better than the US roads and better than most roads. Especially the highway system. We've got a reasonably good highway system across the world. So my question to you is कि ये बात होती रहती है, हमने एक बाबर बेदात हैं, उनसे भी बात की थी about a possible transport policy. And Babar has been after the transport policy for a while. Would you like to see a transport policy And if yes, what should the transport policy be?
I'll let Faisal answer the more detail, but let me just, the first one, I think it'd be great to have a transport policy. Babar Bhai is he was in like the Asia committee and so on. If his insights and intelligence are being sought after by the global committees, it's unfortunate that we're not taking advantage of his insights nationally. Again, we've got personal experience. I literally spent 2 days driving from Karachi to Thar and back. We've spent time on the roads to Gwadar and back, up and down. During COVID, I was driving to Lahore and back. And anyway, so without making it all anecdotal and personal, there are certain elements of policy that Faisal's alluded to, and he can give you a more rigorous answer. But again, there's small things that make a big difference, right? Negative and positive. For example, the fact that we can't implement and enforce an axle load policy. Right, I was with some Chinese partners the other day. We were driving to Thar and back, and the first thing they remarked was how good the road is. Right, the road's fantastic, as you yourself pointed out. The second thing they noticed was, why are these trucks so overloaded? Right, the second, because they said this road, whatever its projected life is going to be cut in half because this is not where it was meant to carry. The fact that the truck is carrying about 50 to 100% more load on itself. I know why they're doing it, because they can make more revenue per trip. But that has safety issues. That has these nine roads. They're going to depreciate a lot faster and create safety issues, right? So we're almost committing suicide on this brand new asset we build. If you go to Gwadar, you see the same thing. If you go to Lahore, you see self. Anyway, not to be too negative, but we're not taking care of our own infrastructure. So once again, there should be more policy to encourage use and so on, but need some basic enforcement so that this infrastructure lasts. And I hope to God that we are creating a depreciation fund to renew this infrastructure. But the criminal will be, we've taken so many loans, right, to create these CPEC roads. I hope that I don't know the detail. I hope there's a depreciation fund just to maintain these roads, because it'd be a pity if these things just decay over the next decade.
Good point. Yes.
Yeah, on the policy side, I mean, I think the transport sector suffers from the same issues that other sectors suffer from. Is that every policy does exist and it is in place, but it doesn't necessarily get followed is an enforcement issue. So we have every vehicle needs to be every commercial vehicle, for example, needs to be inspected every 6 months and needs to get a certification that it is fulfills certain fitness criteria. That policy exists. But there's you and I and everyone on this call has seen any number of vehicles that we'd be surprised that they've passed any fitness anytime in the last 10 years, let alone six months. But that's a policy that exists. As Samir had mentioned about the axle load policy, that's a policy that exists. Their tolls are collected, where necessarily that's going, if they're going towards the repairs or not, or what other hole that's filling is not entirely clear. I'm not so sure that significantly more policies need to be enacted. I think the transport related policies that are in place and are on the books need better enforcement. For example, we've got a fabulous National Highway Police, and they are in the process of enforcing speed limits, for example. But it's actually hilarious that the fines for speeding on the highways is still, for a car, I think it's still 750 rupees. We know, and it's not even there are people that would rather incur three speeding fines between Lahore and Rawalpindi than lower their speed. So and any time those fines are increased, there's a hue and cry and the fines go down. I'm not a big. I mean, again, I'll come back to this. There are policies that exist. I think we just need to find better enforcement.
Turning to another side, You said Pakistanis are talented. In terms of your human resource management, in terms of being able to find the talent to run your business and to grow your business, how satisfied are you? And are you able to find, university graduates or technicians or whatever readily? And are you able to train them readily? Are they capable of carrying this, rapidly growing business, a platform business? You're saying a network business. Are we really capable of running that?
Yes, you want to go first?
Yeah, I mean, speaking from Daewoo Express's experience, we're not, I guess, Nadeem, we're not at the cutting edge of the knowledge industry. From a transport business perspective, we do find the talent. I mean, all we really need, in fact, anyone who does join our business just needs to have a keenness to learn. We have 25 years of experience in the transport side, so we've got 25 years of maintaining buses and trucks. So as far as technicians are concerned, when they come out of sort of a basic degree, they like a DAE in mechanical or electrical, they're put to work with people that have 10, 15 years experience underneath the bus, maintaining it. And those that are keen to learn are able to pick up very quickly. As far as drivers are concerned, you have a basic license, and then when you come to Daewoo, you go through a 40-day training where all aspects of driving are explained. So from Daewoo's experience, and again, as I mentioned, 90% of our workforce is involved in driving or maintaining buses or issuing tickets or taking care of passengers on the buses, as our hostesses do. We find that really all anyone needs is a desire to learn, and I think that does, given sort of the dire economic and employment issues in Pakistan, we do find enough of that. But I'll let Samir talk about the knowledge in the knowledge industry.
Yeah. I'll tell you from what I've seen, Nadeem Saab, you are obviously infinitely better positioned to talk about the education system, and I'm not going to venture out into that field. I can just speak from personal experience, from my experience of what I've seen. I was a student too long ago, so I won't go that far. Over the last couple of years, what I've noticed as a venture investor is, as a venture investor, you spend most of your time with young people, because most of the people who start these businesses are typically in their 20s and 30s, right? Because to start a venture business, you have to be optimistic, you have to be energetic, and you have to be reasonably talented, because you're essentially going and asking for $1 million, $2 million on the back of a PowerPoint deck or a memo or a speech, right? So those qualities help, and Pakistan certainly has, I don't know if enough, but certainly a lot of that. I think the young people by definition tend to be more risk-seeking and future-oriented, because you're building a business for, that'll be worth a lot in 5 years, 10 years from now. So you have to have a level of optimism and confidence in the future. So all those elements are true, and a lot of these businesses, a lot of the venture capital that these entrepreneurs have raised is from non-Pakistani investors, right? So these guys, these men and women. I just use guys. I apologize as a gender-neutral term, but these men and women, these boys and girls, whatever you want to call them, are raising capital from hardcore global investors. SparkLabs is a Korean entity. Tiger Global is a Silicon Valley entity. They've put once again, I don't know if we have enough of them, but we certainly do have a lot. And by the way, what's wonderful is these people are not coming from the traditional, Lahore, Gulberg, Karachi, Clifton background, or from Karachi, or all from Karachi Grammar School and HSN College. They're coming from a wonderful variety of backgrounds. Some of them speak English really well, some of them don't. Some of them have beards, some don't. Some of them wear hijab, some don't. So there's a diversity here, which I think is very good news for Pakistan, right? This is not the time of the 80s when, the only way to get a good job is to work at Citibank, and to work at Citibank, you have to be clean-shaven English-speaking guy from HSN, with all due respect to HSN. Right, so I think we've come a long way, and that's good. We're finally tapping into the value that's available. The disturbing part, once again, there had to be a but here. In the last few months, I've had the good fortune to spend some time at Habib University in Karachi, and I taught class at LUMS in Lahore. And what I noticed was these young men and women were sharp, well-prepared, asked brilliant questions, some of them that made me honestly think. And I made some job offers during that class as well. But here's the part that struck me. There was a level of pessimism about Pakistan that I hadn't seen before. So I'm 52 years old. I've been operating in Pakistan, outside of Pakistan for a few decades. There's a level of pessimism that I hadn't seen. Once again, as an investor, you're a venture investor, especially, you're optimistic. As an investor, as a CEO, you obviously have to have fundamental optimism about the environment to run a business that will dedicate your life there, because someone like Faisal or someone like some entrepreneur, they could pick themselves up and go to Dubai, London, Hong Kong, whatever. So obviously they're making a bet that the opportunity cost of being in Pakistan is worth it. But there's a level of pessimism at these young men and women that was troubling. I haven't seen that in a long time.
We noticed that too. We find that in our research too, that youth is really in a pessimistic mode and people see very little future in this country. We saw this in a survey that we recently did. Haque, 64% of youth want to leave the country, which is a very startling figure when you think about it. But coming to another issue, CPEC. Is trade with China a reality? Is that going to help grow your business? Will you be able to ply your buses into China someday? Or is that day a distant future?
I think prior to the ability to fly buses into China, I think certainly on the trucking side there is significant potential, and I think we'll see growth in that area well before the bus movement. I mean, we'll see some bus movement perhaps, but in terms of volumes, I think the trucking potential is much greater. However, in some ways, I think maybe if Gwadar is not the answer, certainly Karachi Port and Port Qasim might be the answer. We're just missing that link between Haque and Hyderabad as far as the highways are concerned. Otherwise, I think we're quite well connected now to go all the way up and through the border. And so I think the potential exists over there, and I think we will see significant trucking increase in the next 4 to 5 years between Pakistan and China.
And you think China की significant volume होगी? I mean, ये जो CPEC है कि Chinese route, the trade passing through Gwadar or Karachi, इसमें जो problem है, ये जो इतने बड़े-बड़े mountains हैं, क्योंकि मैं जो देखता हूँ कि ये M2 पे तो salt range में trucks खड़े ही हो जाते हैं तकरीबन दिन उनको. Will the trucks be able to ply across those big mountains and come here, or will it be difficult? Is it cost effective?
If I may jump in, Faisal, just for a second, I think the opportunity is multimodal transport. Frankly, I in preparation for this call, read some of the papers PIDE has written on multimodal transport. I think that's the answer. For example, why shouldn't Karachi, Gwadar be connected better through barges? I've driven from Karachi to Gwadar and back many times, and so there are difficult parts in it. But when you go above Boozy Pass and come down, imagine 200 trucks a day going through that. It's really dangerous at some level, right? So, but why isn't it connected better by ship? I'll tell you why. Because there are these laws called the cabotage laws about being so it's easier to take a shipment from Port Qasim to Dubai than from Port Qasim to Gwadar. And so these goofy laws we got to get rid of. So there's a multimodal transport that is ship, truck, last mile by bike or 2- and 3-wheeler and plane. For example, for Chinese companies, for example, the large Chinese cargo companies to come to Pakistan and partner with local partners, you can imagine who our favorite ones would be, right? You need someone who has that multimodal national delivery capability, because The real growth will be China. I fully agree with you. The second part of that growth is really e-commerce, right? And the patience levels are very different. So when I was growing up, or Faisal was growing up, or when you were growing up, you ordered something and you were okay with like 2-3 days, 4 days delay. My 18-year-old nephew, or 17-year-old nephew, sorry, he orders something in the morning, and when he comes back from school, he expects it to be there, right? He wants it to be there, and he gets really upset because that's the impatience level of the digital generation. So someone like a Daewoo can actually deliver that with the middle mile. Let's say your factory is in for some reason it's in Lahore, your client is in Jung. So given the courier service, the middle mile service, and the last mile service, you can do same day delivery. But doing that at scale with technology and marrying that with e-commerce, that's the real play. That's what I meant by owning the platform on which these businesses sit. So for Chinese companies can help us do that. But Chinese companies, once again, this is a kind of chicken and the egg. They will want to invest when there's a lot more Chinese investment in the manufacturing part. So it's, you can keep going back and forth, but we think it starts with more Chinese participation in the manufacturing and more Chinese participation in the technology. So I don't think Chinese care that, I'm assuming they don't care that much about flying, buses on roads or trucks on roads, but owning those networks we think are really valuable, because Chinese logistics companies are phenomenal at optimizing logistics. They have wonderful technology scale in the manufacturing side. And there are very few companies that are, first of all, companies, not just a bunch of sole proprietorships that can deliver that, right? So the question, knowing you, I think you probably ask is, where is all this Chinese investment in manufacturing? Well, yeah, that hasn't taken off, right? So we built the highways, the ports. Ports need some more work, but we built that as a country. We need more Chinese manufacturing in light manufacturing, medium manufacturing, so that there are more goods to transport, right? So there is more to move between cities. Forget international trade, that has a place, but just moving goods inside. So let's say there are more factories in Sundar making athletic shoes, or there are more factories out in Las Vegas that make electronics, right? To supply that to a large growing population. That itself is there are multiple billion-dollar businesses to be made there in e-commerce and logistics to move those products around.
Okay, there's a question from the floor. Infinix something, are you there? Okay, Huawei Y9 now. Why is it that these phones are randomly coming up? Huh? First it was Infinix, now Huawei. Okay, I think he's gone. So anyway, look, I think I take your point very well, but the key question as an economist and as a policy sort of analyst, I find, we need to have these platforms up fast if we are going to survive. Right now, we are in an economic mess, the kind of mess that we've never seen in our lifetime. And the clouds are very dark out there. If we cannot move this economy fast forward, and you as venture capitalists and as investors, you guys must be, kind of, I hate to use harsh terminology, but kind of worried. Okay, what's going to happen? So the key issue here is, what's wrong? Where should we intervene to make this country grow? I'm going to deviate slightly from here, from just road transport only, because yeah, we built the roads. The roads are not yielding us the returns that we thought they would. I mean, if you take M2, if you take all these roads that we built, the whole network, I think the returns are very low. We've gone even further. We've started building metro buses, which I personally think was a mistake. It was just a lot of debt that was taken up, although all we needed was buses, not the platforms, not the bloody, flyovers, underpasses, etc. that we built. Now, with all this, we have a huge debt burden. How can we get this economy to grow fast? Because that's the only way out I see. If we can grow at 7-8% for the next 10 years, maybe we'll be able to reduce our debt. But if we can't, so where do we unleash investment in this country? We held a conference just now in Quetta, which was investment. And my key question to you, which I keep bugging everybody every day, is How can I get my investment rate from 15 to 30%? We got a 15% investment rate in Pakistan, which is almost replacement, less than replacement rate probably, right? So tell me, what can we do to generate investment in this country?
Yeah, I mean, this is the same question we've been grappling with, right? So, I mean, this is what external investors have told us, right? Once again, this is not me saying it, but it's a valid point of view. It says, listen, why don't you build off the? If you look at that popular business school thinking about, you start with your core and you profit from you invest in your core, optimize the core before you go outside the core. So core is agriculture. It's a heavily agrarian economy, which is at low productivity, right? So our productivity in agriculture is world-class levels of it's at low levels of growth. So productivity isn't increasing in the fundamental. In fact, from going to an economy that feeds other economies, we're now importing foodstuffs. Part of the problem is obviously population growth, but part of the problem, Nadeem, is our productivity, right? So then that compounds with the problem of we have less arable land because हमने coal mine खोल ली in the middle of Saiwal, हमने housing societies खोल ली हैं. So once again, I'm not blaming any. This is not a political rant. This is just saying our own the inputs, the raw inputs into agriculture economy are declining, not growing. So the only way to do it is really to create a more productive agricultural economy. And the way we think about, we have a lot of agriculture tech investments in Australia. So we think about this a lot. We're building one in Saudi Arabia. And someone says, well, why don't you do it in Pakistan? I said, man, the agriculture economy in Pakistan is well and truly entrenched with very established, centuries-old families. And they don't really want outside help, it seems like, right? So anyway, so before the farm gate, and after the farm gate, right? That if you think about the full value chain, there's room for improvement everywhere. It doesn't have to be technology, but that is the place our Chinese friends or Australian point to, right? It's just agriculture, the full value chain. So if you had to pick and say, if you told me, hey, where's the incremental $100 million of investment, where should it go? It goes to agriculture. The returns the fastest because you've got the installed base already. You've got people, you've got a lot of this stuff that exists. The second is technology. Pakistan is the fourth biggest freelance technology market in the world. And with all due respect to the government and all our friends there, the more the government threatens to help here, the more my concern is they'll mess it up. So we should be providing more avenues for people to train themselves, to be able to remit money, to earn money. So what recently, because of a foreign exchange crisis, we've limited direct carrier. We will stop direct carrier billing, which is a very important way how people paid for goods and services digitally by putting, let's say, Amazon's $5 on their Telenor bill or Jazz bill. But remember, they also earn through that. So there's an earn and burn method because Pakistan में debit card, credit card नहीं है बेचारों के पास. It's a very low penetration. So either we implement policy that makes it easy. So in a way, to earn foreign exchange, you got to make it easy to burn foreign exchange also, right? You can't just say one way hoega. It has to be both ways to be part of the international economy. So just enabling people, young people sitting in their homes or basements or wherever they sit, to use their technology, talents for programming, for design, for graphics, for women who are talented, but their in-laws don't want them to work outside the home. But there's a lot of talent that can use internet technology, computer technology to sell their services abroad. But to bring that money to Pakistan, you got to be part of the financial ecosystem and have payment mechanisms back and forth. I think that's still being underreported. I think that's a bigger market than the official records show. There's lots of information, position papers on how to do more technology. I'm not saying I'm not talking about how do you replicate, mashallah, systems in a limited success story, which is a phenomenal success story. But we need lots of smaller versions of that, which are possible. And finally, the last one, which is not a very popular example. The first one is a very popular example, which is agri, but not enough is being. Second one, technology, is a very popular example, and something is being done. The third one is not popular, but I'm going to say it anyway, because whatever. I'm not here to be popular. Is literally expatriate more talent, right? So Pakistan expatriates talent. we should expect more talent because we seem unable to create jobs for middle level of talent people, of untalented people, right? So a big source of our people has been the Middle East, GCC countries, but bricklayers are not hyper talented people. They send some money back, and God bless them. They had great personal risk. They send some money back to Pakistan. But if we had a few thousand more nurses, right, just nurses, because the rich countries on planet Earth are growing older, and with old age comes health problems, and they need nurses, right? So they're training robots to be nurses, and they're training Filipino workers, men and women, to be nurses. Why aren't we, right? So I know it takes a lot longer to nurture a nurse than it does to grow a bricklayer, but the return on investment for a nurse is a lot higher than a bricklayer or driver. Anyway, so you asked for, what are the quickest returns on investment? Those are 3 areas. None of them are super sexy areas, but this is money in the bank almost. I don't know what else government can do here, like, encourage opening of nursing schools at scale. Because I think Aga Khan turns out, 100 nurses a year. I think we need like 5,000 nurses a year to be churned out. This is just a niche business. Once again, I apologize for taking on this platform to rant, but you invited opportunity ideas for quick return on investment at scale. And you need massive scale to do this. This is not like 10 more nurses out of a school in Clifton. This is a massive scale for a country this big.
I agree with you. Unless we do something on scale, we will not be saved. Ji Faisal Sahab.
Yeah, I just also wanted to point out, I mean, it's all well and good for people higher up in, at the ministerial level or perhaps the prime minister's level to talk about this and try and come up with ideas. There is a very serious disconnect between the rhetoric that comes out of the government and the actual institutions of the state that are responsible for carrying out policy. So, those foreign investors that have come in the last 20 to 25 years, and you can look around and see their experience, and some will talk about going through going to the FBR, or whether it's at the State Bank or at different places. I mean, we have set up a board of investment, but quite frankly, the board of investment in the end acts as a postman. They unfortunately do not have the strength to actually to sort of make things happen for those who have invested. And for example, the power sector is a very good example. All those that came in and invested in '94 at the initial IPP policy of '94 have left kicking and screaming and crying, if you will. And so they talk to their friends, and their friends talk to others. I mean, we are unable to produce one success story of a private equity investment that has come into this country, done well, and exited. Whether it's whether it's Middle Eastern investors, you talk to Saudi investors, you talk to UAE investors, we're searching for an experience of success of investment and exit of the last 30 years of economic liberalization that has happened in this country. So, I think a little bit of soul searching also needs to be done, where it is that if the government can't do the things that are necessary, perhaps it can find ways of getting out of the way.
Yeah. I mean, Nadeem, you hate this because I'll get on my libertarian bandwagon, but I'm going to do it anyway because you invited me. Ultimately, once again, the answer to everything is not to privatize everything. I understand the state plays a role, especially in making sure the fruits of success are shared, right? So it has to be shared returns. But it's not a bad idea to privatize large parts of it. So, for example, the SEZs go halfway, right? So you say we'll have an SEZ, but there'll be all this government control monitoring. Why don't we just give a lot more autonomy to SEZs and just have a large SEZ, and you say, listen, whatever happens in this zone is within the bounds of whatever, just do whatever you want, right? And then almost like Guada-free zone type examples. Good examples, they say, Acha, Bhabiji mein banega, and then you have one window operation, but one window isn't really one window. There's like 20 mini windows, and then no one told FBR, right? I'm not picking on FBR. I'm just using Faisal's example as how the ideas are really, really good, but instead of trying to implement them, just say, listen, here's a zone, here's an area, you develop it, you invest in it, you populate it, you do whatever, it's yours. right? Just pay your taxes and don't do anything illegal. So I think the challenge is, despite years and years of being unable to execute something like this, we keep saying, we found the mousetrap. Well, this is admit nahi ho raha. And it's not, we don't have the capability to do that. Just say, it's a one window transfer to someone who runs the whole thing as a concessionaire. It's not an admission of defeat. It's saying, listen, practical reality is this is a skill set that's different. So it's okay. Some private consortium goes and builds the whole operates everything the SEZ, and they pay the government their taxes, but their metrics are things like taxes paid, jobs created, and so on, right? So as long as they're delivering to that, let them go do whatever they want.
Gwadar was supposed to be that, but we never did it. We never let Gwadar free. It still remains very much under control. My classmate, the Nobel Prize winner Paul Romer, made a big deal out of charter cities, but we can't seem to do that. But let me take a few questions from the floor. Fida, go ahead, unmute yourself.
Yes, sir. Am I audible now?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. Sir, my question is from Chishty Saab. He talked about the agriculture sector and the problems we have there, and yes, we do. He talked about it being something we can invest in, but I think would Chishty Saab agree that the second point that he mentioned about technology, I mean, you can't have an agriculturist trained in 10 years even, but you can have a technology expert, trained in 2 months or 3 months, and the rest he does on the job. So, and the future is about technology. So if we are going to boost the investment rate, would it be a good idea that we have a focus in our schools and colleges on technology driven, technological skills driven teaching, so that we can have good yeah.
Okay, let's get Chishty Saab to answer it.
I couldn't catch your name, but I 100% agree with everything you said and the way you said it. Listen, once again, I'm not an educationist or whatever that word is. Pakistan needs to borrow from the German apprenticeship model, right? Not everyone should, once again, this is going to sound horribly classist, right? But not everyone needs to go to college and study French literature or whatever. We need more it's a version of trade schools, right? So technology is the new trade, is the way the economy runs. So we need versions of essentially trade schools, but very good trade schools. You don't need to go to 4-year liberal arts college. Millions and tens of millions of people don't need to go to 4-year liberal arts college, right? I'm sure it's fun, but Pakistan can't indulge in fun. I think what you said is basically a version of a trade school. It could be a 3-month program, a 6-month program, a 12-month program, a 3, whatever it is, depending on school, the skill you're learning. If you're going to machine learning school postgraduate, yeah, maybe it's a 2-year program. If you're learning basic programming and design, maybe it's a 6-month program. Right. But there are modular programs. Maybe it's a version of Coursera. Instead of opening more medical schools or whatever people are doing, why don't you get everyone on Coursera? Just get everyone on Coursera and learn basic technology skills supplemented by some in-house teaching, in-person training. And I would do that all over Pakistan. You don't need government to do that. Just say, listen, here's an option that's available. You need to find a way to pay for those colleges, like Coursera gift certificates or through direct career billing or whatever it is. Let people go access these training tools that are available today. Right. So instead of a marginal liberal arts college or a marginal medical school somewhere random where you won't get the quality teachers, everyone get on Coursera, something like a Coursera. I don't work for Coursera. I'm not an investor in Coursera, but the model there, or something like an Andela business model where people can learn a marketable skill, in a sustainable skill. I 100% agree with you, man. I think it would be great. We'd love to invest in something like that.
Whoever wanted to speak. I think this guy is just trolling us. No problem. Okay, fair enough. Okay, so let me just raise this question with you very quickly. We have been investigating in PIDE, which will please you, Samir. We have been talking. Huawei is here. Huawei, go ahead. Huawei, Y9, go ahead. Unmute yourself.
Yeah, Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Ji.
Sir, my name is Noor Ahmed and my question is for Sir Faisal.
Go ahead.
Okay, sir. Can you please tell me the Daewoo Adda is a sister concern company of Daewoo Group?
नहीं वो तो कह रहे हैं ना उसकी पार्टी है, इकट्ठी कंपनी है, एक ही कंपनी है।
अच्छा, एक ही ग्रुप है ये, ऐसा ही है?
हाँ बिल्कुल एक
It is a subsidiary entity. It is a subsidiary.
ओके सर। अच्छा, अब ये है कि सर मैं बेसिकली ना डाइवो अड्डा का एम्प्लॉई हूँ।
ओके तो बोले।
अच्छा, तो मैं सर फैसल से कोशिश कर रहा था कांटेक्ट करने की, तो मुझे इनका कोई कांटेक्ट मिल सकता है सर आपका?
वो बस
Maybe
आप आ जाए ना उनके
क्योंकि
दफ्तर चले जाए।
मैं बेसिकली गुजरांवाला से हूँ ना, ये असल में राइट।
ठीक है, आप इनके दफ्तर चले जाएं, कोई बात नहीं, इनसे बात कर लें, ये जगह नहीं ये बात करने की, ठीक है। अच्छा तो ओके, लेट मी आस्क यू दिस जी, ये जो है हमने पाकिस्तान में जो इन्वेस्टिगेट किया है, हमारा ये ख्याल है इन कीपिंग विद मेनी ऑफ द थिंग्स दैट यू सेड कि एक तो हुकूमत फिकल है, एक हुकूमत अनथिंकिंग है, और एक बहुत बड़ा मसला जो है कि जिसको हम कहते हैं स्लज, कि देयर इज अ ह्यूज अमाउंट ऑफ रेगुलेटरी इश्यूज जो आपने फैसल साहब कहा भी था कि कलेक्शन एजेंट आपको बना दिया जाता है, आपको ओनरस किस्म की डॉक्यूमेंटेशन बर्दाश्त करनी पड़ती है वगैरह वगैरह। इसको हम देखते हैं एज अ फॉर्म ऑफ स्लज के एक दलदल में फंसा दिया है। और ये स्लज जो है, जो ब्यूरोक्रेटिक डिलेज, ब्यूरोक्रेटिक डॉक्यूमेंटेशन, ब्यूरोक्रेटिक परमिशंस, all these things are slowing things down in the business world, and people are mighty scared of taking on the government. Obviously, by definition, the government is the 900-pound gorilla in the room. तो आपकी बिजनेस में की स्लज के इश्यूज के, आप कहते हैं ट्रांसपोर्ट पॉलिसी है, इंप्लीमेंट नहीं होती, आप कहते हैं काफी सारी चीजें अवेलेबल है, इंप्लीमेंट नहीं होती, बट इफ यू लुक प्योरली एट द रेगुलेटरी साइड ऑफ द ट्रांसपोर्ट इंडस्ट्री, तो आपको क्या, व्हाट वुड यू हाईलाइट a sludge item, the onerous, horrible regulation that you guys face? That's what's up.
I think it's, yeah, I think that when I was highlighting these issues, you know, the point wasn't so much that you know, apart from the fact that obviously you know, once the minute you establish a company, you're you know, you start becoming withholding agent for the government. I think that's just a fact that exists on the ground right now, the way things are. Wasn't really so much a complaint about the issues that we face in the transport area. It is a fact that it is not universally applied to every participant in this market. So you know, if we you know, if we have requirements related to you know, income, you know, tax requirements, sales tax payments, withholding tax and income tax requirements, and you know, other such rules in place, then the entire industry should have to face that, because what that does is that those that are in the informal sector are able to get their way around, and we're unable to compete, and therefore that results in you know, some of the
what about things
you know,
like regulatory permissions? What about things like regulatory permissions? For example, if you're going to field a new bus or a new route or whatever, do you have huge requirements on what needs to be done?
No, I'll be. This is you know, and I think this is a testament to the fact that you see so many new buses on the road and new routes being started and so on. The government has actually been quite supportive of that, and the process to get route permits, fitness certificates, things of that nature are actually quite streamlined and quite well done. That's that aspect of it has actually resulted in the blossoming of so many buses on the road, and continues to increase. So I would be I'd say that really aren't you know, those sorts of issues that the transport sector.
And there's no fare regulation. Aapki fares regulate to nahi hote. You don't have to get your fares approved.
No, intercity buses for AC buses is a non-regulated area.
If you want to raise your if you want to raise your fares by 30% tonight, you're perfectly capable of doing it.
We are. I mean, having said that, I mean, from time to time there are subtle messaging perhaps that takes place, but there's nothing in the statute books that prevents us.
Okay. And what about things like maintenance of your buses, etc.? Does the government get into that, or it doesn't? safety requirements or anything like that?
No, absolutely. So fitness, there's a fitness certificate required every 6 months for every commercial vehicle that's on the road. I mean, we fulfill that. I'm not so sure whether everybody else fulfills that requirement, but that is a requirement that remains. I mean, if I were to highlight one thing on the maintenance side, it's just the fact that the government has placed limitations on the importation of spare parts and stuff these days. So that's proving to be a bit of a problem. That's probably common for everyone across the transport sector, but that's the result of lack of foreign exchange, I guess. Yeah, the government's involved in terms of certification. Beyond that, they're not very, the requirements not very onerous.
And I saw, at least in one place in Lahore, you also have a small hotel at the mouth of the motorway. Is that somewhere that you would like to go in the future, sort of cut back into the hoteling industry, or at least the motel industry, as a complementary logistics model?
I mean, it's yes, we do have a hotel at our Thokar terminal. We started that as just to see what sort of when that's a service that our passengers require when they arrive late at night or what have you. It is I mean, in terms of just providing service, I guess it is a similar sort of area for us. We haven't gone into it in any great depth. It's again, I think the hospitality business is a difficult business. It is similar to servicing customers, on your buses, and so it is complementary. But I think at this stage, it's a step that's a bit far for us to take. Nothing that we intend to do.
If I may just make a comment on the regulatory. So I don't know if you call it sludge or just an opportunity for an aberration. I think one of the wonderful things about Karachi and the Sindh government is they fully realize the value of better intra-city, so better metro commute options. For a city, for Pakistan, the biggest city, between 20 and 25 million people, depending who's counting, Karachi, my hometown, needs better commute options, right? Today, so that people can go to work in the morning with dignity and comfort, and they can come back with dignity and comfort. But remember, at the same time, Pakistani consumers who take those buses are incredibly price sensitive. The price elasticity curve is super. It's brutal, man. These people are, especially in these days where bijli, atta, everything is expensive. So what the government of Sindh has realized, thank God, is the payment back of these metro buses is in externalities, right? The payment back is in externalities such as low pollution, better quality of life. And also, it's not that each bus route has to be profitable. The network is profitable, right? The network, it's like one fax machine isn't valuable, but a network of 1,000, in the old days, 1,000 fax machines were valuable. So the same way, the network of buses that Karachi is building, so people like me will say, well, it needs to be faster, but at least Karachi is building out that network of buses. Ideally, you want to set up a network of buses and overhead light rails, a bit like what Bangkok has done. So you improve quality of life, reduce pollution. So whatever we can do more of that in more cities, right? And speed decision making, because it can't be that it takes X number of years to do like one BRT project, and then it has to be. So for Karachi to accelerate its pace of growth and to encourage entrepreneurs to come to Karachi needs lots of different things. So I won't go through all the things that Karachi needs, but it needs cheap, plentiful, reliable electricity. It needs good transport options, needs good bandwidth, some basic fundamentals. So it's not about something government, including sludge, but it's something that government should do more of and think differently about what are the metrics for commute, right? It's not about that route should be profitable. While I admire that attitude, it's more about the quality of life and externalities, right? For example, I took some notes before our call. An electric vehicle is 3 times cheaper on a total cost of ownership than a petrol vehicle. But here's a crazy one. The air quality is 20 times better. from an electric vehicle than a petrol one, right? So the externalities pay for it. The problem is the upfront cost is twice more expensive than a petrol vehicle, but you can create financing mechanisms and tax breaks. But especially in an environment where Mohtarama Shahid Rahman went and made it, she's a global heroine for climate and a real warrior for Pakistan. It's 20 times better than petrol. We should only have electric vehicles, electric buses, but it's about creating a network of that, not just having 50 electric buses. We need a whole network so people can ride end-to-end in comfort and dignity while improving our externalities. And if whatever the government can do to sustain and renew the policies for getting cheap loans, that would really make a big difference, I think. So start with just with Karachi and Lahore, and you've solved a lot of the problem just there. And that serves as a role model for other cities then to go do it.
Sadly, we don't even allow electric vehicles into the country. I'm looking for an electric vehicle. I can't buy one. The only one you can buy is an Audi e-tron, which is
because they can. Mashallah, you can afford the e-tron. Most people can't, right? So the fact that
I'm saying the e-tron is 3.5 crore. I mean, they should be getting electric vehicles. There are cheap electric vehicles available in China, for example. What is that company?
In all due respect, the real market is electric 2 and 3 wheelers. The 2 and 3 wheeler electric market will grow 200 times in the next 5 years if we had druthers. So the market it's a motorcycle market. Motorcycles are terrible because they pollute. Motorcycles are terrible, they're noisy, and frankly, they're not safe. But they're made locally, right? So the same companies can make 2 and 3 wheeler bikes, right? Because they all know how to make it, right? They don't need to. But the cost, like I said, upfront cost is more, but the cost of ownership over time is less, and the air pollution is 20 times less, and the noise is like 80 times less, right? So there's all these benefits. You just have to get over the hump of that upfront cost, which is why we think fleet sales are good, and the government should be doing everything to get these in.
The tragedy, Samir, is, and we've been talking about it a lot in PIDE, the government has got into the habit of building hardware and rather senselessly. They have no idea of how systems operate. They have a very hardware-oriented approach without building systems around the hardware. And one of the things that we're missing is the software of management. We built roads, we built electricity, we built gas, we built all kinds of things, but we just don't know how to manage them. And I think this is a key skill that Pakistan is missing, the management skill. And that, unfortunately, we don't even want to build. That's a big tragedy. For example, another example I'll give you is, हमारे पास अब 260 universities हैं. And right now, even as we are speaking, Planning Commission is approving, I think, another 10 universities right now. So we will have about 300, 400 universities by the end of next year or something like that. And we counted the professors. There are not even 2 professors per university in the country. By professors, I mean learned people who can lead the universities. And we have very few technical schools. So the whole thing is lopsided, sadly. But yeah, hum koshish karte rehte hain, kaam karte rehte hain. So thank you very much, both Samir and Faisal. Thanks for coming and helping us learn about these businesses. It's wonderful. Any last words before we close?
Thank you for listening. Thank you for the question. I love that question, which came packaged with an answer. I wish more questions came like that. But next time you do a session on agriculture technology, on expatriating more talented people, and on technology, please include me.
We will bring you in. We do these regularly. We will bring you in. One last question is just coming up. Imtiaz Ali Saab, go ahead.
Just 2 quick questions. Samir, one, when we talk about investment, why do we miss the overseas Pakistanis, our own Pakistanis who are ready to invest in their own homeland, but it's such messed up that they don't, and we keep chasing Middle Eastern, American foreigners, our own people have more in everything, we just need to have the environment. Secondly, I've never understood, was CPEC always profitable for us, or were we able to take the yields that we should have? As an example, Burj Khalifa in Dubai, a tower, they sold residences in it. But apart from that, the viewing deck generates around $600 or $650 million a year in ticketing sales. Now, that's how you get returns, apart from it being a tower and getting indirect tourism into the country. Why have we not been able to understand this? Why is it so difficult for us to understand what is a simple investment where we can make money? And lastly, Do you think it's time to let go of our egos and accept that, and this is for Nadeem Saab as well, and accept that we are bankrupt today? We were always bankrupt morally as well, but today financially Pakistan is bankrupt. Let's accept it and let's put on an emergency to fix ourselves and our country. Thank you so much.
You mind if I answer the US diaspora question, Nadeem sir?
Go ahead, please. Go ahead. Go ahead.
It's funny you said Imtiaz Saab, was it? I this morning I had breakfast just in Karachi with a very prominent member of the US diaspora on exactly this point, on attracting US Pakistani diaspora investment into Pakistan tech scene. Pakistan's biggest asset class today is real estate, as you well know. A lot of let's pick US. I used to live in New York for about 10 years. You obviously seem to know the US diaspora well. The US diaspora is not just all in New York or all in Silicon Valley, right? So there's all this wealth creation by, mashallah, the US diaspora in America. The Pakistani tech community is reasonably well connected with the Silicon Valley tech community through Open and through these different events. I think one suggestion maybe for Nadeem Saab is, or maybe Imtiaz for you, is finding better, this is what my breakfast was about, finding better ways of connecting the Pakistan tech scene, Pakistan tech investors, Pakistan tech entrepreneurs with the US diaspora members not in Silicon Valley. Because there's a lot of Pakistani diaspora wealth in Sugar Land, Texas, in Central Florida, South Florida, and Chicago, and in Northern Virginia, and so on. Which is, I think, is bigger than the wealth of Pakistani expatriates in Silicon Valley. So I think it's a great idea. That's exactly what I talked to Najib Usmani about through YPO, to connect through conversations like this and to lots more virtual events, ultimately leading to in-person events, to really connect with those. If you have other ideas of how to make that connection, because I tell you, there's some great entrepreneurs, phenomenal entrepreneurs. They are capital starved and starved for experience. So the entrepreneurial wealth, the medical wealth of the medical profession of the Pakistani diaspora in the US is enviable and a real important resource for Pakistani entrepreneurs. But I think if they're outside Silicon Valley, where Pakistani entrepreneurs, Pakistani investors like myself have not done a good job, I'll admit, of reaching out to them. Maybe there's webinars and so on. Nadeem Saab, maybe you can schedule, which are at US-friendly time zones that we can take part in, and they can better understand Kya. But I will say the connection with Silicon Valley is actually reasonable, but connections outside of Silicon Valley in the US is not good.
Well, Imtiaz Saab, quite frankly, I don't think कोई information problem है. मैं भी अमेरिका 30 साल रहता हूँ और मेरे बड़े लोगों को मिला है वहाँ. Everybody, all the Pakistanis seem to be well connected to Pakistan. They know what's happening in Pakistan. The tragedy is that we ourselves are not ready to receive investment. I think, quite frankly, our government is very investment unfriendly, and we are very investment unfriendly. You talked about Burj Khalifa. याद करें कि लाहौर में खड्डा अभी तक पड़ा हुआ है. लाहौर में एक शेख, अबू धाबी का शेख यहाँ आया था, उससे आपने खड्डा खुदवा दिया, उसको बनाने ही नहीं दिया बिकॉज आपकी आपस में लग गई थी. वो अभी तक नाराज बैठा है कि भाई वो उसको इतने पैसे खर्चवा दिए और आप उसको बिल्डिंग नहीं बनाने दी, वरना वो तो यहाँ बुर्ज टाइप बिल्डिंग बना रहा था. तो quite frankly, I don't know what it will be, right? डिफॉल्ट के पास हम आ गए हैं, but I don't know when we are going to wake up. आपने बिल्कुल ठीक कहा, ईगो खत्म कर दे, पर ईगो तो हमारा बहुत ज्यादा है. And I don't think we really want to grow. I've reached the conclusion that Pakistan really doesn't want to grow. Pakistan is a backward-looking country. Pakistan doesn't want to look forward. अब खान साहब भी हैं, ये सब पीछे की बातें करते रहते हैं कि अमर बिन मारूफ और रियासत मदीना वगैरह, but we are not thinking of going forward. Lee Kuan Yew came to Pakistan once and he said, Giri, what can I advise you? You guys don't even want to live in this world. You want to live in the next world. I think there's a lot of fundamental problem that we have, and we must have a big dialogue on this. I wish our political leadership will wake up, but abhi tak to koi chance nahi nazar aa raha. Despite the default, they're fighting away. They can't seem to come together. This is the time for them to sit in parliament and do some real serious brainstorming and begin to understand here, what is it that we can do? If it's agriculture, unleash the growth. If it's investment, unleash the bloody thing. Get rid of the sludge, get rid of the bureaucracy. Tell the bureaucracy to go and sit at home and twiddle their thumbs or whatever. Stop giving permissions. Stop doing this nonsense of creating sludge. We keep chipping away. Let's hope it works. Thank you, Samir. Thank you, Faisal. Thank you, everybody. Inshallah, we will keep you in the loop and do this again soon. All the best. Thank you for giving us a very
Thank
good
you.